All right, hey, what is up? Welcome to Bayside Students Podcast, and we got the legend here, the most. I'm going to say, like, Kevin, you are one of the most hidden gems at Bayside Church.
Wow.
I mean,
hidden gems,
man. It is crazy. The wisdom, the experience. Probably my wife's favorite communicator at Bayside. That's not probably. It is, but Carson, you the intro guy. Introduce the legend himself.
Yes. One of my favorite kind of intros to do is like boxing kind of vibes. I like in the left corner.
Oof.
Coming in at 6'17".
Whoa.
Well, I'm scared about
14 pounds.
Whoa. Soaking wet.
All right. We got the marriage and church politics and pastor and golf extraordinaire, Kevin Thompson. So we brought Kevin in because Kevin has a wealth of knowledge, and we're talking about church politics. Now, if you've just gotten in the youth ministry, like the young bull over there, or you've been around for a while, for me, this is not something I learned in school. But the sad part is this definitely exists within church. Like, church politics exists. There is, we always think, I think when you're in seminary and you're in Bible college, that somehow the church is not going to be the business that you think it is. You think it's going to be like Acts 2 and everyone's going to get along. And when you're struggling financially, the senior pastor's going to sell stuff to give you money. And that's not the case. So we wanted to take one of our first or earlier episodes as we launch this thing and talk about church politics and talk about the realities of what it is. So, Kevin, first question we got for you is, what are church politics? Why do you think they exist? Are they good, bad?
So, I mean, politics comes from the idea of same word as policy.
Yeah.
Like any time you have a group of people, there has to be some kind of organizational structure. So even the word politics, I realize in our culture, it gets a bad rap because of American politics. And I totally get that. And even within church politics itself is not a bad word.
Yeah.
It is polity. It's how are things run. And every church is going to have politics from that standpoint. And then from a student ministry perspective, I think it's going to just be very important to figure out how to navigate that in a wise way. If not, if you go in going, oh, I'm never going to play the political game, well, guess what? You're not going to be part of the policy, the polity of the church.
Absolutely.
And there's just no way to exit out of that. You have to play a role. You just have to play it wisely.
Absolutely. And I think it's something that exists, and as any church grows, like I've been a part of a church plant. Carson's a part of our church plant here. Carson's campus is exploding. It's crazy. And I remember my church campus that we planted in Santa Rosa, it grew slow, but as we grew, so did the policies, right? And so did the rules, and so did the things, and we were sharing a church. And so policies obviously exist for a reason, and then things happen and rules are put in place. And I think for a students pastor, a lot of times we think we're going to come in and it's just going to be all hunky-dory and this. And so how would a students pastor, how would they lead up when it comes to leading up to the senior pastor, or even within the church organization, so maybe that they can get more of the freedoms they're hoping for?
I think one thing every student pastor is going to have to understand is there will be things that will happen to you that you will feel like are extremely unique and has never happened to any student pastor ever before. And so this church member has come to me with a concern about our pastor.
Yeah.
Nobody's ever gone through this.
Yeah.
I got to get to work on it.
Yeah.
When in reality, that happens to every single student pastor, every staff person who has ever been there. And so to begin to recognize a couple of things, if there is a legitimate moral threat, you have to act on that. No question. But with everything else, people, well-intended no doubt, are always going to be looking at who are the power players that I can leverage now for my bent.
Yeah.
And so I know. So I was lead pastor for 13 years, right, on staff for 19 back in Arkansas. And people would try to triangulate Jenny.
Yeah.
To get information from her, to get her on their side. That way it would be opposed to me. They will then obviously do that with staff people as well. And to recognize that this is going to be the desire of some. And so as a staff member, I have to make sure, never excusing bad behavior, not saying that at all.
Yeah.
But I am not going to play that role. I am not going to now be pitted against my leadership, because the moment you are, and the moment you allow yourself now to be opposed to your leadership, you put a target on your own head of
100%.
what's going on. And what's happened in that moment is you've lost all ability to influence.
Yes.
So one of the things I talk about a lot is I call it the CIA. Why? What do you control?
Yeah.
What do you influence? What do you accept?
Can you say that one more time? That's gold.
What do you control? What do you influence? What do you accept?
Absolutely.
And you have to figure out properly the CIA. You need to know the CIA because the CIA knows you, right? And so what happens a lot of times is whenever we attempt to control something that we're actually supposed to influence, we lose both control and influence.
Sheesh.
And so specifically whenever we talk about even leading up, I'm even a little uncomfortable with even that phrase. Of what I like is this idea of how do I influence?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's not that person does not have the job that I have. They have responsibilities I don't have.
Absolutely.
The decision belongs to them. Now, how can I be a person they turn to? How can I influence them and what is actually going on? And I think if a staff person will play that role, they will actually get a whole lot more access into the issues that are going on, the decisions that are going on. Whereas if they in any way try to manipulate, try to control something that is not theirs, they're going to be sidelined.
100%. I mean, there's so many things I want to unpack there. That was gold. Number one is there's a great book by Mark O., who's kind of this rebel within youth ministry, but he wrote a book called Getting Fired for the Glory of God. And it's that moral thing, right? Like where are the lines in youth ministry that I'm going to quit, I'm going to leave this church, or this is something I'm just going to put my head down and work and keep watering the grass here. And I think that's something every youth pastor needs to kind of understand of like, what am I going to be okay with? Like the CIA, what can I control? And if things are just getting out of control and the things that I should be controlling, I'm not allowed to control, whatever that may be, then maybe it's time to leave or time to find a new church, whatever it may be. But then also influence. Like John Maxwell says all the time, leadership is influence. Now, what I think is great when it comes to leadership in general, when we talk about leading up in youth ministry, it like the idea of how can I influence up, but also the idea of how do I keep the perspective of my senior pastor down on me in positive things. And a couple things that like I've had to learn the hard way is like there's a lot of voices like you were talking about, like people are going to your wife, people are going to this. You piss off the senior pastor's wife, guess what? You're going to be in a world of trouble. I was dealing with a bloody nose of a student one time, and one of my leaders did not know the senior pastor's daughter was up to bat at kickball. I didn't know it was possible to strike out at kickball, but she strikes out. Next day, I'm in his office because his wife got a crying daughter after a youth group, and I'm like, I didn't even know this happened. I didn't know she struck out. So I'm just like, it's those types of things where it's like there's some politics in it. Also, like, keep the facility workers on your team. Okay, like,
oh, there you go.
I mean, like, let's be honest. Like, you're starting out. As you guys hire that facility guys, that's the first dude you're taking out. When I got hired here, you know who the first guy I took out to lunch was? Roger Boyce. I took out the head of facilities. I'm like, we're going to be on the same team because I want to do some dumb stuff. I'm a student's pastor. I want to reach some kids, but I understand that like my leverage and my ability to lead up is going to be tied to my influence with this person. And even the secretary, like at my church secretary, my very first church, I remember getting back from a summer camp. We used the church van, and it's, you know, I didn't clean it. I'm like 21 years old. I wasn't thinking, and man, she was furious. She was like, you got back from a vacation and you can't even clean the van. I'm like, you think summer camp was a vacation? You know, and I'm like snapping back at her. But then guess what? The next day, whose office am I in? The senior pastor. And so it's understanding the leverage points, understanding those things where it's like you had said leverage a couple times. And I think those are key when it comes to being a student's pastor, and just like not in the sense that you want to manipulate it, but you also want to understand perspective is different from every single person of what you are doing. And a lot of senior pastors don't understand youth ministry if they've never done youth ministry. And then when their kids get involved and all those things. So could you just talk to like a note as like maybe as a parent a little bit of like someone looking down, and then even just like what that looks like as a student pastor? How can they navigate that a little bit?
Think about it from a student ministry perspective regarding your career.
Yeah.
The biggest decisions of your career will be made in rooms that you're not in.
Yes.
So the question is, how do you influence those rooms for the good of what's going on? That means you have a reputation. There's a knowledge and understanding of who you are. And so in everything that you do, you're building or degrading how people view you, how they understand you. And this is not like personality management and I have a publicist, and it's not that.
Yeah.
But it is this idea of when I'm not in the elder board, I'm not in the campus pastor meeting, and yet they're making decisions about me.
Yeah.
And so whenever that happens, who are they going to be talking about? And who do I know in the room?
Yeah.
How have I treated them? How have I acted with them? What kind of man am I? What kind of person? What kind of staff member? Do they see me as, hey, whenever it comes to Kevin, I don't really know what he does, but here's what I do know.
Yeah.
He's a really good man. He's high character. I know he works hard. I know every time I've interacted with him, here's the interactions I've received.
Yeah.
I know he messed up that one time, and he came to him and he apologized. And that then, you're in the room even though you're not in the room.
100%.
So I think what you have to begin to see and to recognize is you're influencing the influencers
100%.
and now bringing to them either a weight or coming across as a lightweight in what's going on. And a lot of youth pastors, here's the mistake they make. They're not able to transition and recognize what relationship they're in and what room they're in.
Mm-hmm.
And so it requires multiple skills.
Yeah.
So you have to have the ability to, I have a 15-year-old. You have to have the ability to be light and breezy and fun with my 15-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
But you cannot be the same way with me.
Yes.
You can't be the same way with my wife. You cannot be the same way with a grandparent. And you have to be able to play these multiple roles. And the student pastors who cannot do that, they might be great with kids, but then they complain, oh, it's just all church politics. No.
Yeah.
It's your inability to influence.
Correct.
That the actual problem is.
Absolutely. And that's gold, man.
Yeah, that's great. So I have a couple of questions. The first one's with the student pastor who, doesn't have influence yet, or maybe there's only a couple people on staff, or they're new, or whatever it is. Maybe it's in the beginning or at some point. How would you advise a student pastor when they don't get their way in something?
Yeah, get over it. Yeah. So here's what do you control?
Yeah.
And for the student pastor who doesn't have influence yet, they're brand new, great. You know what you need to do? Do your job.
Mm-hmm.
Like, do your job with absolute excellence. When a decision is made that you do not like, have the understanding of, look, the issues are bigger than what I see right now, and I don't understand this decision, but don't just automatically assume that it's wrong. I think about this all the time. So we're sports guys, right? So you're watching your team play, and let's say you prefer the backup quarterback over the real quarterback. If we're not careful, our thought can be, why is that coach so dumb that he doesn't realize the backup quarterback is better than the real quarterback?
Mm-hmm.
Instead of recognizing, what does that coach know that I don't know?
Yeah.
He's in practice. He sees I have nothing to go by. He has everything to go by.
Yeah.
That doesn't guarantee that he's right. But shouldn't we assume first that there's more information and that I'm lacking in some way? And yet, whenever it comes to work, church, all those kind of things, we're not very careful. If somebody doesn't make a decision we don't like, our first thought is, well, they're wrong. We either think they're ignorant or they're evil.
Mm-hmm.
And neither of those two are going to get you by very well if that's what you're thinking about your boss.
Absolutely.
Now, let's be honest. Either or both of those could be true.
Yeah.
And so this is proverbial truth. This isn't gospel. No matter what your boss says, here's what you need. If you're working for Driscoll, quit. Like, just quit right now. You don't want to work for him, right? Or that type. You just don't do that. But beyond that, if this person is reasonably good and you can trust them, if they make a decision you don't like, your first thought is, all right, not what I would have done.
Yeah.
I bet you they have more information than what I have. They have more experience than what I have. There were so many times in which I was making decisions based on information that our staff never could have access to.
Right.
And I recognize you're going to think I'm an idiot here.
Yeah.
I just, as a leader, I just have to deal with that truth because I can't tell you what's actually going on.
Yeah.
And so I think to do your job, to do it well, to do it with a great attitude, to be thoughtful and kind and considerate. And if you have the ability to follow a direction that you don't agree with and never voice it, never vocalize it, I mean, nobody even knows that you disagree with it.
Mm-hmm.
People are going to pick up on that very quickly. And then what happens is, I trust you.
Yeah.
And now that I trust you, what happens? I'm more likely to be influenced by you.
Absolutely. Yeah. There's a saying, I'll send it to you in a sec. There's a saying that's public praise leads to private influence.
Yeah.
And I think that's something as like for me, I am such a go-getter. I am such a frontline leader. Let's go. I know what's right. And in my early days, man, I ran into the brick wall of church politics because I was like, you're an idiot. You don't know what you're doing. Like, I'm reaching kids for, like, this youth group's growing. We're exploding. What are you doing? Like, why are you doing this? And there's so many things that, like, over years of wisdom I wish I would have retained when I was younger, to be like, I just don't know everything. I don't know what's going on. I don't know. At the end of the day, we still have to pay bills. We still have to, like, keep the lights on. There's still, you know, other ministries that are all advocating for themselves. And it's like you're talking about, like, I can choose to think the best of everybody at this church, understanding we all have the same goal, or I can begin to become very selfish, very entitled, and very me-centric as a pastor.
Yeah, I was going to say that idea a mentor basically said to me at one point, and it really changed my perspective on all leadership, is that people above you are probably making decisions based on information that you don't have. And how he said it to me is probably information that you don't even want. And there's stuff that I really don't care to know, or would change my perspective. I wouldn't know what to do with it. And he says that whenever you don't know something, or somebody does something that you don't know why they did it, you either fill it with suspicion or trust. And we have to continue to choose to be the person who's going to fill it with trust. And it just changed my brain, the way I operate, the way that I trust people.
And I think, one thing I think about even here at Bayside, there are times in which I see coworkers get frustrated because they feel like they're not being given opportunities.
Yeah.
Well, earn it.
Absolutely.
Like what I think about this all the time. What do you have? What can you bring to the table that says, hey, because of this, I deserve this opportunity? Because a lot of people, they're assuming that their bosses are actually holding back their career or their ministry in some way. When in reality, they've never done anything to earn it. It's not your boss's. Your career is not your boss's job.
100%
at all. That is you. That is on you. That's something you control. That's not something they control. We can't look to them of, they have to give us opportunities. And there's a responsibility leadership-wise. If this were a podcast to senior leaders, we would be talking about what that looks like. But from the student ministry perspective, man, grow your ministry the best of your ability, and then chances are you will get other opportunities.
Yeah.
But I hear things all the time in which people will begin to say, well, I should have been, I should speak on stage at the main campus of Bayside this weekend. All right, based on what?
Absolutely.
Like where's the proof that you have any right to do that?
Are you killing it with, have you been a good steward with what you've already been given? And I think the thing is too, is like, if you want something, then like you said, with the CIA, what is in your control that you can do? You know what I mean? Like, this has been like a wake-up call for me, even for myself, as I think about my leadership and my influence and what I want. And I'm like, I'm doing this. I'm doing middle school real well, but you work at a church, right? There's a bunch of ministries. How much influence do I have in kids? How much influence do I have in? I spoke at women's for the first time last week. It was great. Yep. You know what I mean? And it was great because then Lisa comes up to me and she's like, man, I heard you killed it, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, how do I grow my influence? And it's not always going to be like just to the senior pastor. There's a lot of other platforms and stages within the big C church, or even just within your little C church. And are you being a good steward of the influence you have now?
Yeah, and to have the reputation that you're for other ministries, that you help other ministries, that you'll do whatever you can to assist somebody. One thing, Jared, you and I know this well, we deal with all the time here, is whenever we have ministries going on at the same time, who's getting what room?
Absolutely.
Well, here's who's getting what room. Who has the crowd that demands that?
Absolutely.
So it can't be this idea of, well, I have this, it has to be mine, it has to always be that way. No. You earn it.
100%.
Like, whatever it's going to happen, we're going to earn it. We're going to work together. And then, and I recognize, look, and think about this. There was a time in which our founding pastor had a room booked for an event, and we had an event that outdrew it.
Yeah.
And he said, all right, you got that room.
Yes.
Yep. Like, if he can have that mindset, who am I to show up and begin to go, on Wednesdays, I have to have the worship center. That's mine.
Yeah. We were in the same boat. It was the three of us. Like, he ended up being in the middle school room. We were in, and then I had to come to you and be like, Kevin, you guys have too many butts in this room. You guys got to be over there. We're coming over here. Yeah, but it's having that humility and understanding, like a mentor of mine said this early on in my ministry, don't turn molehills into mountains. You know what I mean? And not everything is a hill worth dying on. Yeah. Like that book, that I talked about in the beginning about, I'm blanking on it now, Getting Fired for the Glory of God. Like there are things that are worth leaving a church for. Absolutely. But there are things within your control in your ministry that are not big deals. Yeah. Does it take away from your ability to reach students? Does it take away from your ability to preach the gospel and see lives change? If both of those answers are no, it's probably not something worth like getting all flustered over. Mm-hmm. Hey, they're going to move you to a different room. Or hey, like I remember one time at my church plant, we didn't have a room for middle school, so we had to do middle school outside. Now I can be like, you got to be kidding me. It's like, you know what I did? I brought some TVs out. I did this. I made the best of what I was given, and it's like, did it suck? Absolutely it sucked. But it's like, I can either work with my team and with my church, or I can work against them. Yeah. And that's a big thing when it comes to church politics.
The most repeated phrase I have now, so was in the senior role, now not in the senior role, right? I would say that the line I repeat to myself the absolute most is this line: it doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I will be in a room, the angst will begin to grow, I'll be frustrated, I don't like decisions being made, I don't like the discussions being had, I just don't think what we're doing is right, whatever. And I'll remind myself, it does not matter.
Yeah.
In the grand scheme of things, it's not going to prevent you from doing the ministry you want. It's not going to hold back the church at large.
Yeah.
Now, there are things that do matter. There's no question. But if they really matter, they'll matter 48 hours from now.
Mm-hmm.
And so even if you have something that's really bothering you, to be able to wait, I would do this as a senior leader on a regular occurrence. If somebody tried to make a meeting with me and it was extremely, they made it feel extremely pressing.
Yeah.
I would try to delay it by a day.
Yeah.
Just to see.
Yeah.
Because so often that emotion would wear off and they'd walk into my office in a radically different feel than what would have happened the day before. So just ask yourself, does this really matter? And is this actually in my job description?
Yeah.
Because if it's not, then in most cases you can let it go and move on.
Absolutely.
Well, I have a couple more questions, but if we only have one, we'll just see how it goes. But it just depends on your answer because it's got a bunch of wisdom. I feel like there's generally maybe two types of student pastors. Maybe this is just people in general, but there's the I deserve more, and there's the I don't deserve enough. And I think that the student pastors like, I deserve more, I need more, all these things probably don't have as much influence in the room, but the other side probably doesn't have a ton of influence in the room either. Is there a way, maybe it's an encouragement that you would give to either on how they can gain influence while where they don't have it, and maybe if they've made mistakes, how they can reconcile?
Yeah, it's the concept of what you're going with is what we deal with individually. It's the concept of narcissism and self-pity are actually the same thing. They just express themselves in a different way. So in both cases, their total fixation is on themselves.
Yeah.
It's just how it expresses. So one is I deserve nothing, one is I deserve everything, but in both, the I is the central focus. And so I think whenever it comes to this, you want to find the median between the two. How can I place myself properly, even within my own story and then within the story of the church? Whenever I first came here, one of the things I would tell myself very often in staff meetings and all these things was, Kevin, they don't need to hear from you right now.
Mm-hmm.
So every room I had been in for 13 straight years and a lot of rooms for 19 straight years, the conversation wasn't happening unless I was speaking. Right. I was expected to speak. A lot of times I was expected to end what was going on, to draw the conclusion. So I come to staff meeting here the first day. There's 400 people in the room. I'm sitting over there at the table. Yeah. Something happens, and immediately I have what I would say, and I was like, oh, yeah, that's not me right here.
Yeah.
Now, that doesn't mean I never talk.
Right? Yeah.
But it does mean that I don't, because here's what happens. The senior leader, whether it's fair or not, regularly centers him or herself in the room.
Mm-hmm.
Part of it's just the job, part of it's ego, all those kind of things. I had to consciously de-center myself regularly.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean I'm silent.
Right.
So how do I vocalize this in a proper way? If what I say, what I think I have is really important, what is the right channel for this to happen? Because part of what it means to be a staff person is that your idea is going to be communicated to everybody through somebody else, and nobody's going to know it's your idea. And you got to be okay with that.
Absolutely.
And that's just part of the job and the task of what you're doing. So I think to navigate that properly, of my voice isn't the only voice that matters. My voice does have weight. Now, how can I channel that in a proper way?
It's good. Solid, man. Yeah, I would say as we kind of wrap up here too is like I would say like learn who your yeses are. One of the things at Bayside that I'm a big like I have my 5 yeses, and these are if these 5 people call me. So Kevin Thompson, Jenny, Silas, but it's like Scott Connor is my the hire and firing guy of me, Colton Tucker, Ray Johnson. It used to be, it's kind of mixing up now. Now it's more Mark, you know what I mean? Like everyone's kind of moving, Kurt's over there now. But it used to be if these people call me, it's an automatic yes. Yeah. Scott says, hey, we got to do this. It's yes. It's like, hey, we got a movie here. It's a yes. And it's not like it's there are times when it's like, I don't want to say yes, or I may have a conversation, but it usually ends up being, hey, yes. And it's one thing I know it's done, as I've been here for 4 years now, it's given me favor with Scott to where like when I'm like, hey, I want to hang students from the roof for this game, Scott's giving me a yes. Well, I'm putting a slip and slide down the main worship center, it's a yes. Mm-hmm. Because I understand that influence has compounded and the merit has grown, and now I have influence with him and he has influence with me, where if he knows he's going to come and ask me to do something, it's going to get done. Yeah. And it's going to be my first priority. A lot of times what happens is a senior pastor or someone in authority over you will come and ask you to do something, and you'll be like, oh, yeah, I can do that. And then it goes to like number 3 or 4 on your list. And it's like, at the end of the day, it's like, no, it should be number 1. Because if you were working at McDonald's flipping burgers and they told you, like your manager came and said, do this, you're going to stop flipping your burgers and you're going to go do that. Yeah. Because that's a job. And that's the weird politic part of student ministry, is that I think that middle school ministry is the most important ministry in church. I know that I am delusionally crazy, but you're not going to change my thought in that. But at the end of the day, I know for me to have the biggest middle school influence, it's going to be with me saying yes to a certain group of people sometimes.
Yeah. And I think it also recognize for other ministries to flourish, you're going to flourish as well.
Absolutely.
There's nothing that could happen greater to the middle school ministry than for marriage ministry to just take
100%.
off.
Absolutely.
At the same time, there's nothing that can help marriage ministry better than a strong student ministry.
Yes.
One thing that you said kind of brought me back for a minute. Here's one of my biggest pet peeves as a senior leader, where a staff person would walk in my office and say, hey, Kevin, I can't make tomorrow meetings. I got this going on.
Yeah.
Okay. Here's just a subtle change.
Yeah.
Hey, Kevin, do you mind if I miss tomorrow's meeting because I got this going on?
Absolutely.
There is never a scenario in which I'm saying no to that.
Yeah.
But to walk in and to tell me what you can and can't do immediately puts me in a position where I almost feel like, oh, you want to bet?
Yeah. I can make you be there.
I mean, it's such a small thing. And I need to humble myself in those cases. People don't recognize what they're doing. But even that, I've worked for many people. I do not walk into one of my boss's offices and say, hey, here's what I got going on.
100%.
I walk in and say, here's what I would like to do. Are you okay with it? And generally they say yes.
Yeah.
But to have that understanding of where I am in the organizational chart and to respect that and not to be bitter about it.
Yeah.
This is just where we are. Hey, this is the job you agreed to.
Yeah.
And so you can't be upset about it. Now honor the person who has the leadership decision.
Absolutely. Your ability to serve other people and other ministries and that humility is going to only build that influence, right? The CIA, what can you control? Influence. And then what was A? I forgot. Accept. Yeah. And then I think that's true. You have a great book too. I mean, if you guys haven't read any of Kevin Thompson's books, go get them. My favorite book is Stay in Your Lane. Oh, what? That was crazy. I didn't even realize you had this here. Stay in Your Lane.
It's right here.
I didn't even realize.
He's got it.
You guys, we did not plan that. But this is one of my favorite books. So easy. And here's the thing, is it's so true.
Yeah.
If you were a student's pastor, go pick up Stay in Your Lane and stay in your lane.
Yeah.
Control what you can control. Give to God what is God's, and pray for those other people in their lane and what they're doing. And I think that's like this book. I'm like, any youth pastor who's struggling with this stuff that I talk to, and I talk to a bunch where I'm just like, stop being dumb, be a good steward with what you can, and like kill it.
It's the dumbest book ever. It's
great.
literally it's the simplest book you've read since Goodnight Moon, but that basic concept, it will give you a perspective of how to take the next step.
Absolutely.
And the fact that I could pull it out and you not even know.
I did not even know.
That's so funny.
I was like, this guy's gonna be like, just read your Bible, but no, he loses it. And it's
Read, stay in your lane.
Read, stay in your lane. But hey, Kevin, thank you so much for being with us today, man. Hopefully, you guys got something from this. If not, you obviously aren't a leader because this was gold. Like the CIA, I'm taking notes. I'm like this is gold. I'm still learning. I'm the old kangaroo, as Karsten likes to refer to me.
Young buck and old kangaroo. Let's go.
Absolutely. Hit us up in the comments, man. Let us know, hey, what are some topics or things or questions? Mate, we'll get Kevin back here again. What are something you want us to talk about? Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We'll see you guys later. Peace.
When one of us gets better, we all get better.
Yes. Oh, my gosh. Our tagline, when one of us gets better, we all get better. Yes. We got to work on this.
That's right. We're getting there.
We're out. Peace.